Thank you very much. Thank you. And hello.
Hello, everybody. It's Matthew Street, and welcome to my channel. As always, I appreciate you being here. And my friends, the Beatles. Let's be honest, if you were around during the time of the Beatles as I was, when they broke up in the spring of 1970, it basically, officially in spring of 70, although they were pretty much defunct by the end of 69. But anyway, when we got the official word in early 1970, the Beatles were no more. It was devastating if you were a fan. It sent shock waves across the music world and the world in general that the Beatles were no longer. And for the better part of 10 years, if you were around then during the 70s, we wished, we hoped as fans, we dreamed that it could happen, that the dream wasn't over, that someday the Beatles, once they chilled out a little bit, once they were separated from each other for a little while, doing their own thing, the solo careers, we had hopes that they would reunite someday. And we all held on to that hope right up until the evening of December 8th, 1980. I don't even like to think about it. I'm sure you don't either. But that changed history forever. Not just history of music, history of the world was changed at that moment in December of 1980. And in the decades since, we've all tried to move on as best we could with our lives, but the devastation is still there, that the fact that the dream was in fact over on that night, and that the Beatles, John, Paul, George, and Ringo, would not reunite ever again. Thankfully, through technology, we had some glimmers of hope to have the wonder of Free as a Bird, Real Love, and then Now and Then. And the three Beatles in different areas have worked together and stuff, and that's been nice. And even before John died, John would work with Ringo, George would work with John, George would work with Ringo, Paul would help Ringo. They kind of went back and forth a little bit. And anyway, let's move on from the tragedy of what happened. Now let's hope, let's dream, let's fantasize a little bit. A lot of people have done videos fantasizing and creating what-if Beatle albums. You see a lot of that. And the main ones I seem to see are what if the Beatles didn't break up in late 69, early 1970? What if they had put out one final album in like 1971 or something, or early 72? A lot of people do those fantasy Beatle albums. They'll take songs from like John's Plastic Ono Band or his Imagine album. They'll pull songs in from McCartney or from Ram. And they'll certainly look to George's opus, All Things Must Pass, and pull in songs from that. And they'll even take a song or two from Ringo, from either Buku's the Blues. Usually, if we're talking early 70s, what would have been their next album after Let It Be, you can't really include the Ringo album from 73. That's a couple of years down the road. But they'll maybe take a song from Buku's the Blues or one of his songs like that and make it the one Ringo song, or one of his singles from the early, 70 or 71, like maybe Don't Come Easy or something. We can make a single, put that on the What If Beatles album for after Let It Be. So you see a lot of that, and they come up with all kinds of combinations, great combinations. Everybody has a little different take on what the Beatles album after Let It Be would have been like in 1971 or so. I thought I'd do something a little different, folks. I thought I would do an album of what if the Beatles did break up in 1970. They needed to get away from one another. They went on to their solo careers as they did all throughout the 70s. John went up to 1975, did Walls and Bridges, and then the rock and roll album. And then Shaved Fish came out. Then he went on a little bit of a retirement for a few years. Paul kept working right through, soloing with Wings, right up to London Town and Back to the Egg in 79. George worked, sporadically, but he had his big comeback returned to form with 33 and a third in 76. And then he came out with a great album in 79 with the George Harrison album. And Ringo kept plugging right along right up to Bad Boy in 1978. But in my fantasy world, in 1980, and the fantasy of the tragedy with John never happening, it didn't happen. 1980, the Beatles decide to make amends. They reunite in 1980 and decide to pool their songwriting ability, to pool their resources, and put out another Beatles album. But instead of this one being just after Let It Be in 71 or 72, this album has been recorded by the four Beatles in 1980, coming into early 81, and they are ready to release an album called Beatles 81. And it's coming out. You might be saying, Matt, where'd you come up with this? Well, I've heard of the early 70s Beatles reunion albums with their early 70s solo stuff, but my friend Rich here, my YouTube friend Rich, Wink55, you've heard of him. You know him. He's out there. He comments on a lot of different channels. Well, we personalize back and forth. We text, we talk and whatnot. And he said, and I got to give him credit for this, he said, Matt, why don't you try this? Do an early 80s Beatles reunion album. Everyone seems to be doing the early 70s Beatles reunion albums. Do an 80s one. I said, that's a pretty good idea. I don't see a lot of those, if any. So we put our heads together and started talking. Now, when I say put our heads together, I hope is going to include his list in the comments here. He said he would work on his list separately, and I told him I'd work on mine. We just worked together to set the parameters. We said we'll make it a 1981 Beatles album. We'll give approximately, you can give or take 4 songs to John, 4 songs to Paul, maybe 3 to George, and 1 to Ringo, which would normally be on a Beatles album. George would get 2 to 3 lead vocals. Ringo would get his 1 song. So we figured do a 12-song album, not 13, not 14 like the old UK Beatles albums. Let's do 12. That's what I did, folks. Rich is going to do his list, and Rich, I hope you'll put it here in the comments. But we just set a few parameters, and we set off to work on our Beatles reunion album 81. And I'd like you to do it too. If you like this video, please like, comment, share, subscribe. I'd appreciate it. But also, I'd really love to see what your dream 1981 Beatles album would look like and what would be the running order of the songs. Okay? So here's mine. Let's have a little fun. And I'm sure at some point, if it's not up here already, I'm going to have the cover of the album. I made a faux cover thanks to Rich. He helped with some of the imagery. Rich helped me with that, and I finished it up. And here, this will be my cover. If it's not already up there, you'll see it. So let's go. Beatles 81, the big early 80s reunion album of the Fab Four. Side 1 is going to kick off with, let me explain my theory behind this album. There's a lot of different ways you can approach it. Should it be really modern, like early 80s modern Beatles? Or should it be old-style Beatles or psychedelic-ish Beatles brought up to the 80s era? There's so many ways you could go with this album. Straight out, balls to the wall, rock and roll, mellow. What should we do? My theory, this is me. You can do what you want to do and explain it. My theory was I wanted to have that new, fresh sound, obviously, and most of these songs I'm going to tell you were recorded in 1980 or 81, or were conceived then. So it's going to have that modern, fresh flavor right off the bat because that's when the Beatles wrote them and originally recorded them. But also, I wanted it to have a retro vibe. I wanted it to be like the Beatles had been away for 10 years, and now here it is, 1981. They're coming back with their comeback album, and they want it to be modern, but they want it to have that retro vibe. They want that vintage flavor to it with the songs choice and with the running order and the sequencing. So that's what I think I've done here, and see what you think and how you would do it. So side 1 is going to kick off with Just Like Starting Over. Modern, fresh, but it has that retro 50s vibe to it. And John sings it and performs it so well. That would be the first song on side 1. Then, second song on side 1, which keeps that retro vibe going but with a modern flavor, Nobody Knows, sung by Paul. Starting over, Nobody Knows. We're off to a modern yet retro feel. Nobody Knows is just one of my favorite songs on McCartney too. I love it. And it had to be on here. I just felt it fit into that modern but retro vibe. Now, song number 3, I went to George Harrison. Here's George's first song on this Beatles 81 album. That Which I Have Lost. I just thought it had a nice vibe to it, a mid-tempo song, but with a little bit of retro sound to it, you know, with the guitar licks and stuff. I just thought it would fit here as George's first entry on the Beatles 81 album. The next song is going to be Paul singing lead on The Pound is Sinking. Just thought that we need an upbeat rocker. I think, like Rich even said to me, he says, I think John would like that song. And I agree with that. I think John would really love The Pound is Sinking by Paul, and he would want it on the Beatles 81 reunion album. The next one, we're going to go mellow here. We're going to go with John's Woman. John's next lead vocal on Woman. Fits perfectly. It's, like John called it, the Beatle track on Double Fantasy. It fits, and I just think it would sound nice in this slot. Next to last song on side 1. Last song on side 1, Ringo gets his entry with Sure to Fall. Beautiful, beautiful cover by Ringo. Fits with that modern yet retro vibe. It's a Carl Perkins cover. Ringo handles it so well on Stop and Smell the Roses. Finishes out side 1. Flip the vinyl over. Beatles reunion album, 1981. Side 2 kicks off with George with the upbeat Flying Hour. Yeah, gotta have it on here. I love that song. It's upbeat. It's George's fast-paced number on this album, and I just think it fits so well in the vibe. The second song on side 2, John comes in with a retro yet rocking Nobody Told Me. Fits perfect. I just think so. Now, not really mellow, but we go down to a mid-tempo shuffle here. Paul on lead vocals with one of the Beatles heroes, Carl Perkins, and they sing Get It. Perfect little slot here. Third song on side 2 for the Beatles 81 reunion album, Get It. Paul lead vocal. Fits perfect. We go right back to George now. Now we're getting to the bottom half of side 2 on the album. We're slowing things down and building up the majestic, bombastic quality of the Beatles songwriting. George, with his final and third entry, Life Itself. Fits nice here, I think. Right in that 4th slot on side 2. John comes in big with Watching the Wheels. The next to last song on the Beatles reunion album, 1981, Watching the Wheels. I just think it needs to be here. It just brings it all in. It's just such a loving song by John. The lyrics are just astounding. It's one of the best songs he ever wrote. And to finish out the album, we need something big and majestic and finish it in real bombastic Beatles style. Paul with the big lead vocal, finishing out this Beatles reunion album, Wanderlust. Has to be in the final slot, number 12 spot, number 6 on side 2, last song on the album, Wanderlust by Paul. Well, what do you think? I've already made a playlist of this album on my Spotify, and it's sounding good. I like it. I think this is a cool little Beatles 81 reunion album. If only, right? If only we can dream it could have happened. I think this would have been a cool little album for them. Would it have been as probably well received as Abbey Road or something like that, or, you know, like a Revolver or Pepper? Obviously not. But you know what? For being 10 years away from one another, and they came back together in 1980 and reunited and they said they wanted to make it modern but have a retro feel to it. I think these 12 songs fit nice. And I'll put each one up here, one after the other, side 1 and then side 2, so you can see them and see what you think. Okay? Hey, that's it. Just a little fun for tonight's video. Get back to some Beatles stuff after my long trip in Tennessee, the Grand Ole Opry and everything else. Elvis Land at Graceland and all that. So happy to be here, happy to be making videos, and happy that you are part of my channel. Thank you, and I'll be right back very soon. Bye-bye.
The people in the cheaper seats, clap your hands. And the rest of you, if you just rattle your jewelry.
finger!